Okay, so if we now made through all the technical difficulties, I hope you can hear me successfully. If not, this will be really short. So, welcome to the host device oVirt 3.6 deep dive. My name is Martin Betak, and I am a software engineer at the oVirt project. And in this session, we will go through the new feature of host device pass-through. So first of all, what is host device pass-through, and why would you want to use it? This feature is useful when you want to add some additional performance to your VMs. Essentially, it consists of detaching the devices physically from the host and giving direct access to the VM. So this can give you additional performance, or is useful in cases when you want to just have direct access to the hardware. So first of all, I will show you the new host UI that can list the host devices. You see, now we select the host and see a new table that essentially is the output of LSPCI. You'll see multiple columns that we have the capability of the device, which is like USB, PCI, or others, the vendor and product ID, and we also, for PCI devices, we can also see the special number of IMM group, which we will discuss later. You can also, when your devices change, you can manually trigger the refresh by the refresh capabilities button, and the devices will be refreshed. Okay, so this was the host UI. This is pretty basic. You can just read the devices. But what was this IMM group thing? So IMM is a special feature of PCI devices. It's essentially a unit of isolation for them, and we need to take this into consideration when passing through PCI devices. The complication is in that all devices in given IMM group, identified by the number, need to be detached from the host. Then the user can choose only some of the devices if he wants them attached, but these devices will be, the rest of the devices will be essentially occupied, and we will not be usable in other VMs. So you can pass through all of the devices of the group or some of them, but only to one VM. Let's look how we actually can configure the host devices for VM. For virtual machines, we have a similar subtab called host devices. And what we provide is a convenient shortcut to pin VM to a host. This is a very important restriction because host devices are only valid in the context of one host. So we require that you first pin a VM to a particular host of which devices you want to access. So this UI provides you a convenient shortcut to pin the host, so you wouldn't have to go back to the virtual machine dialog and edit the pinning. So we also have a special treatment that if you decide to pin a VM to another host, the engine will make sure to clear the devices because devices are identified by the device address. So, and the same address may have completely different meaning in other hosts. So the engine does this to ensure the consistency, so you don't accidentally pass two devices on another host. So let's look how we configure the device. Again, in the dialog, you can see we can choose the host and this will do the pinning for us. It is, again, a convenient shortcut. And we can also filter the devices by their type, for example, PCI or USB device. In this table, we can also see that if this device is already configured for other VMs, and also if it's currently in use by a VM. A device can be, of course, used only by one VM since it is directly attached to that. So let's pick some device. We see that this device was added to the configured devices, that it's in bold black shown, but we also see that we have added that the oVirt has added some more devices, and we can see they're all from the same IMM group. This is what I mentioned to guarantee the consistency, and indeed all of these three devices will be occupied by the running VM. What will be visible in the guest is only the device user specified. So in this example, that's the last black line. The gray ones will not be visible from the guest. The user cannot remove these shadow devices because that would violate the constraint. But if the user actually removes the device he actually has visible, the engine will make sure to clear all unnecessary shadow devices. Okay, so what we will show now is that we will pass through a network card and we'll later go into the guest itself. Okay. So we log into the guest VM. And of course, since this VM has a VNIC configured, we can see the IP address. This is the old stuff provided by oVirt. But we also see here that there is also another device visible, which is Intel Ethernet. The guest sees this device exactly as is specified on the host. So we can enable it. And we see that we have now two IP addresses and we can use this device. If you were to additionally look into LSPCI in the guest, you should see the original manufacturer and all the physical information for the device. So this is indeed the device which is on the host. So a few general remarks to this feature. This feature is heavily dependent on hardware support. So you have to make sure you have throughout your hardware enabled VTD on Intel or AMD VI for AMD. You need to make sure you have IMMU enabled in your kernel command line. And also, I highly recommend to consult the wiki page, which should list all these necessary steps to enable this feature. And also, you need to be really careful with this feature because you physically detach the device from the host. The engine does some basic checks so as to not cut your network to the host, but if you're doing, you really need to know what you're doing because after you detach the device from the host, you're really on your own and the guest is in charge. So there was a presentation. I will now, we have a lot of time for questions. If you have any questions, you can write to the oVirt IRC channel, and I'll try to answer them. Okay, there seem to be no question. If you will have any afterwards, you can just ping me, write me an email, and I will try to the best of my knowledge to answer them. Again, I recommend consulting the wiki page if you want to actually play with this feature yourself. And I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.